very glad here to welcome Roman Schumacher from Personio, co-founder and CPO. I guess everyone knows Personio by now. It's been quite a successful story, and we will share the background of that story later. Just to give you a little bit of kind of numbers. You guys started in 2007? No, 10? 15, sorry. Yeah, no, sorry, 4 years ago. 2015, that's really short. And in 4 years, being bootstrapped, you basically got 2 fundraising of significant importance, 10 million euro for your Series A, 40 million for your Series B, with very well-known investors like Index. And you're now basically part of the next 50 potential future unicorns out of Europe, named after very successful reports of JP Morgan. So what is behind this success story? Let's find out. So Roman, welcome. We'll have some questions later on. But first, before we jump into the interview, I would like to get to know our audience a little bit, to just figure out actually who is around and why you're here. So can I have just as hands up, who is from the HR domain? Come on, don't be shy. So we have some HR people. Who is from more of the product domain? So product owner, product manager. Cool. Any entrepreneurs? Any investors? Cool. Any corporates? Okay, so quite a mix of people. So I hope we'll answer all your questions, but in the meantime, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So, Roman, let's start from the beginning. I guess you didn't come up right away after university with this idea. How did you first kind of get through the entrepreneurial spirit? Is that something that you wanted to do from the beginning, or did you want to start in a corporate? Like, what was your feelings after university?
So I did not wake up the other day realizing, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. But reflecting on this, I think there were early signs of me being really driven by building stuff. For example, during high school, I already realized that learning about web development actually and practicing this allows one to build a somewhat professionally looking website without having even gone through university. And with that, I once went into a coffee shop which asked for a side job for actually washing dishes, and I was like, yeah, I could do the washing dishes thing, but I could also build you guys a website. And I'm lucky they agreed to help them. It turned out that the owner was graphics designer, so the result would be more promising than what I would have come up with. And that's how I stumbled into very early on earning like significant amounts of money as a high school age boy essentially. And I really enjoyed building things with digital tools and technology. And that's what I pursued also in my studies.
So you study media informatics?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Always enjoyed running like project aside and really investing into making something work, after all solving a problem for someone. And that's, I guess, the early signs that then with being as part of a CDTM study program called Technology Management, finding also like-minded people that are driven to, and also giving a tool set as part of this program for what it takes to write a business plan, or how prototyping is done in a professional manner. And with this tool set then on top of my intrinsic motivation to just build stuff with technology, I ended up realizing I want to do something on my own, and with like-minded people I was able to make.
So you did some internship and some background, so steps into Foodora and West Wing. Was it to kind of gain this entrepreneurial spirit and then afterwards step into entrepreneurial yourself, or was it just something that you enjoy working in a startup?
Yeah, so the honest answer to that question is no, that was not intentional. I was lucky essentially ending up at West Wing back in the days when they were 15 employees, and you would visit their website, starting off with this shopping club where there was only a sign-up form, and I had literally no idea what they were going after even, but they essentially were hiring me as a front-end development working student with literally no experience besides me building those websites as a high school student. And that's how I ended up working for a high-growth and successful startup. After all, 1.5 years later, I decided to leave West Wing when they were, I think, 200 employees. So I was lucky to be part of this growth journey, lucky to be part of agile development teams and get a sense for what it means to building a product at scale.
Mm-hmm. And I think your exploration didn't stop there. I mean, you know, if I kind of analyze your background in studies, you very much get of like multiple directions, right? Try to complement some informatics with some CDTM skills, trying to have the experience in a fast-growing company. You also went to UC Berkeley, I guess, to also have a little bit of the US Coast type of mentality. Where, like, at some point you just realize, okay, now is a good time to start afresh and a new startup, or how did this jump came across or occur?
Yeah. So essentially, as part of the CDTM study program, I was meeting like-minded people like Hanno, my co-founder and CEO at Personio, who I was working with on projects and realizing we get along very well in terms of the way we work, the way we communicate. And with that, also developed a passion of entrepreneurship and wanting to really found and run something our own. We agreed that this is the route we want to go, while actually being in the final phase of our master studies. And I went to the US pretty much that time. And at some point, me being abroad, Hanno was calling me up like, hey, there's this idea, like I'm exploring this, like what are your thoughts around this? And I was essentially then remotely signing up for what's now called Personio without by now actually having ever finished my master's studies. So it was really jumping on the opportunity. Yeah, don't tell my mom.
So the team actually came first, before the idea.
Yes.
And you met Hanno. What about like Ignaz and Arseniy? That they were also part of the CDTM ecosystem?
Yes, exactly. So Hanno essentially was assembling the team with us being somewhat set on the previous agreement, while Arseniy was part of our CDTM class, so also someone who we've been working with. And Ignaz was essentially also a reference from the network, which Hanno was also introduced and seeing a fit both personally, but also in terms of marketing expertise, which none of us was having.
Okay, so I guess like having the referrals from the CDTM network functioned very well to set up the team. How would you advise founders who have an idea and are actually looking for co-founders? Because the team element is so strong. I mean, I'm myself a VC, and when we look at early stage startups, we look mostly at the team dynamics and the complementarity of skills. So how would you approach this if you haven't had that ideal setup with Hanno assembling you guys through the CDTM network? How would you have come across such a good team?
Yeah, I think it depends on your availability to specific networks. I do think if you're related to university still, this is a strong network with great reach. Probably there's others in terms of profiles you probably find at consultancies of people that want to look into specific industries and at some point still become entrepreneur. So I think it depends on your availability and also what kind of talent you're looking for, right? Are you maybe serial entrepreneur, which we clearly weren't, and therefore want to also look partnering up with other, previous founders.
And you worked together before, which I think is also a very key element to the good dynamics of the team. You knew how to kind of solve problems or be in conflict.
Yeah, I was about to say that. So there's this dimension of collaboration that's so crucial, where we were lucky to have like a true reference and experience from previous work. But also, and I think that's what you find as key pillars of Personio's culture, essentially is this alignment on the way you want to collaborate. And I think there's a couple of dimensions you've been telling about this before, and I've been reflecting since then, that are probably very much important to how we work and how we work on the founding team, but also early leadership team level, which evolve around communication. Like, if you're not able to express ideas and have a constructive discussion and brainstorm without observing yourself running in circles to make the other understand what you're actually meaning, like, this is so fundamental, especially once you have less time to even have this sort of communication. The more you grow and the more specific responsibilities evolve. So I think this fundamental of communication is so crucial. But also there's, I think, one that is hopefully, and I hope our team members here can confirm, very present at Personio is what we once labeled solutions over problems, but essentially is the positivity and the willingness to take risks and just deal with challenges as they arise rather than blaming the circumstances about things not working out. So I think this positivity is really what I personally advise you want to look for in people you consider founding with.
Like enthusiasm, no fear of risk. Nevertheless, I must say when we talked earlier, I was surprised that none of you guys had any expertise in HR, or never had done HR. How did you come up with the idea, and how did you kind of complement your foundation with some sector expertise at the end?
Yeah. So it's true, we didn't have much expertise, nor in HR, nor in management or running a company. So what we ended up...
All of your founders also came out straight from university with maybe some jobs on the side, or anyone? Yeah.
Mostly, like our senior CTO was running 2 small mobile-heavy startups before, and Iggy was at Rocket Internet, which probably was by far the most relevant experience we had after all. But on the HR part specifically, what we found ourselves doing is just constantly engaging with potential and actual customers. So we would, in the beginning, essentially just build what they were telling us they needed, to then later evolve into a proper, let's say, product management setup with, doing proper analysis, research, and discovery to validate and prioritize problems, and getting to a more scalable setup. And I think this close interaction with customers, me ending up doing support like 50% of my time, and then understanding customers and the HR domain after all is what it took for us to make this.
And how do you actually don't fall into the pitfall of listening too much to your customers? Because if you start listening to every single feedback you get from your customer care or from your sales interaction, you would start building kind of the all-in-one platform. Was that the goal, or how did you actually started prioritizing? Yes, this we'll incorporate, but this we'll leave it for later, or maybe never.
I think there's a natural progression in prioritizing, where in the very beginning we had 5 paying customers, so we would pretty much do what they were asking for. We were just chatting about a customer we actually disabled a feature for, specifically hard-coded, which we just found out yesterday that we did this. So that's where we probably listen too much, but at the same time, if there's this very small handful of customers only, I think it's something you can afford if you at some point then start being more rigorous in prioritization, which we ended up essentially doing by still carefully tracking every single feedback, but then making more quantitative analysis on what are actually most requested items and do they make sense for our target customer. But you're right, in the beginning it was very much listening and maybe too much, but I think it's about making this transition to becoming more intentional the more you scale.
So how can you just describe a little bit how the first 100 days look like? Where were you, in which office, or were you in a garage, like most of the entrepreneurs?
We didn't have a Silicon Valley-like garage, but we ended up subleasing one room, which would fit probably 6 people, at an office close to Google, actually, not too far from here. And we were essentially the 4 founders getting together and, potentially collaborating a lot on product development, like essentially Hanno being a sales machine and bringing all the insights, like, hey, we've got to build this, discussing with me, and then me together with Arseniy transforming this into code, where I probably spent 10% of my time doing product management, which you can imagine is little. The other, like, 50% coding, and probably another 40 customer support.
And from the MVP to the working product, how did you evolve? I remember we discussed a little bit that usually startups would like to kind of master something, like be the solution to a problem and do this very, very well. So we say, as investors, like, let's focus, let's get this, like, maybe even too much perfectionist. But you started by, or you aimed at becoming a holistic platform, like basically trying to solve every single problem of HR.
Yeah, so that was unusual in a way, but I think looking back definitely is worthwhile doing if you want to become an all-in-one platform. And what this resulted in for us is, I think, pretty much 2 years of firefighting. So we put out this massive product with a massive feature set, which we ended up making actually robust over time only, where the more customers we had, the more complexity in the organizations we were serving we saw, the more edge cases we would find we've never ever thought of, and we after all needed to fix. So it was basically a very long time for us transforming the MVP into, like, probably not viable but more lovable product.
And how did the team evolve throughout these first 2 years? I guess since you were very complementary, you kind of allocated tasks accordingly. But recruiting talent, who was, for example, your first employee hired?
Yeah, I think the one of the first employees, unusually, was our head of BI.
Okay.
There was a strong strategy behind that, thinking of that. But it definitely helped us early on being on top of the business metrics and making sure we have a proper foundation of data to make decisions and then support fundraising and such.
And how did you come up? I mean, I hear that it was not very a tactical move to hire that person, but BI is very much for startups a core element of monitoring, of being able to present a dashboard, being very analytic. So this, like, search for data, did that help you to actually solve more and more of the problems of your customers?
I think it was less customer focused than, let's say, business enablement focused, also than professionalizing go-to-market functions. I think eventually thinking of this, we hired the person who was very entrepreneurial and ended up, helping us with support, building custom data integrations for customers even, and of course also doing BI, but I think it was more getting in the hands of a person that would do anything that
who can define his own job description. Yeah. And quite handsome. So you basically kind of, if I look at the statistics, grew from you're now 250 employees, 34 nations, 2 locations, so you have 2 offices in Munich and in Madrid, 15,000 plus customers in more than 35 countries.
Yeah, more than 1,500. It's not 50,000.
1,500, sorry, 1,500. I have a hard hard time with numbers today. You even acquire a Spanish payroll startup, Robots. How did Personio evolve over time? Were you aiming at this from the beginning on to be like kind of scaling at such an international level, covering the entire value chain of HR and management? Or did that come more like tactical through the different rounds of investors?
So the dimension of product scope was pretty much defined, as said, with how we entered the market and then claiming the all-in-one solution. In terms of team, of course, we did realize, especially in product development, the sheer amount of things we needed to solve at the same time for a product that typically you would find 8 other companies building, like an applicant tracking system, a performance management system, a time tracking system, and so on and so forth, where we did this for a long time with a handful of engineers, which required a lot of context switching, and it was painful after all. So it took us a long time to build up the teams that allowed for proper focus around a mission, a clear product vertical, and being intentional about what to build in line with our strategy rather than firefighting.
And because for those that are maybe new to Personio, you basically cover with your software solution pretty much every single activity of an HR manager, from recruiting, staffing, payroll, accounting, holidays, leaves, sick leaves, etc.
Exactly, and performance and development.
And performance and development, career development, which is super important. How would you advise entrepreneurs to deal with, kind of becoming such a holistic platform and scalability? What are the things that you should measure or pay attention to if you want to become a scalable startup?
So I think there's multiple dimensions to scalability. One is the product scalability, where this is exactly what we've been investing on after we validated that this all-in-one approach would actually work. So with more and more customers deciding to buy Personio, we ended up taking this product that's validated and making it better, like more robust, more performant, more scalable, handling also more employees over time. So that's, I think, the dimension we just needed to invest in. So there was not a secret sauce to how to make the product scale rather than going feature by feature and integrating all the edge cases and learnings and customer feedback. On the organizational side, there's this aspect of scalability through, I think, what you summarize as a process, where we've been lucky to have angel investors on board that would support us in having a clear organizational setup along with the customer's life cycle to make sure there's crystal clear responsibilities for every department and eventually every single role at Personio. So you would find for every job a page in Google Drive that would describe the responsibilities of such a role in line with the department's mission, and this kind of structure, I think, helped us scale the organization to an extent we're today.
And this is just funny for an HR management software to actually apply also within your organization what you teach to your customers. So I think what we discussed last time also is this very ingrained culture within the organization that you need to be also behaving as role model to your customers in terms of HR management. I think is quite impressive. I was also mentioning about the kind of KPI that you're looking at in terms of scalability, like when you achieve a product market fit and you kind of see this trend where you think, oh, this is happening, my product is becoming scalable. Like you mentioned last time, customer growth, stickiness of the product. At what point in time did you figure out, well, we're on a gold mine here, and this actually could become super big?
I think it was the ease of which we were able to acquire customers inbound. So, especially from customers referring other customers. So that was a big growth driver, and it's still a significant challenge for channel for us today. And I think this was the proof point that also helped convince early investors, like customers being acquired mostly from referrals of existing customers. And then later you obviously can look at the actual data in terms of retention, like having that negative churn is key for us. And I think with this early referral focus and then later on seeing customers stick while having this like massive market. So we just talked about that, have 1,500 customers, a bit more by now. And the European market is in our target segment of 10 to 1,000 employee businesses, 1.7 million businesses. So the 2,500 we have today is so little of the actual market. And I think with that opportunity, we realized, okay, being this platform and being the industry default for HR teams, for all those companies is massive.
And having a pretty low customer acquisition cost, if this is based on referrals, makes it very cheap to actually acquire new customers. Let's actually talk a little bit about internationalization. Why did you basically acquire another startup in that branch in Spain versus actually doing it yourself? Like, is that how you feel about internationalizing, like buying versus starting from scratch?
We believe that for international, we can take the existing product and adapt it in the areas needed, like time management and payroll, rather than acquiring local players for the sake of a lot of commonalities in HR processes. So there's a couple of regulations we need to consider, but essentially the product itself should be serving also European international customers very well. The reason why we acquired the startup called Rollbox earlier this year was for extending the product portfolio. So with us being system of record for any HR data, and even offering what we call preliminary payroll, a feature that would aggregate all the company's data to do payroll, we realized the potential in connecting this to an actual payroll engine to do payroll end-to-end based on all the data we own. So we were partnering up with this startup before and distributing that to every single employee of our customers. And with that collaboration, we realized, okay, this is exactly what we need. The market potential of payroll is massive, given that any single company already spends like roughly 10 euros or up to 20 per employee every month on their payslip. So covering this with this synergetic product experience was an obvious one in terms of synergy of the products. So we decided to partner up with the team, get the expertise in, and pushing this beyond, let's say, a partnership integration to a truly integrated product experience.
Horizontal integration to cover more of the value chain of the activities of HR. Talking back on culture, did you also find a fit in terms of culture with this startup from Spain? Because I guess this framework or mission, vision, values that you're very proud of at Personio needs also to fit with acquired company.
Yeah. So there's multiple dimensions on culture fit. One is this vision, where, as said, with their vision of digitizing and automating payroll, like without building an HR platform themselves, was a very perfect fit to our vision. In terms of the organizational culture, through partnering up before and collaborating, we realized the way we work aligns very well. While there is, of course, cultural differences in like Spanish work culture and German ones, which I think result in beautiful synergies in terms of having maybe this grain of optimism where Germans, like I'm generalizing now, but tend to look at the constraints, and the guys from Spain will just be like, yeah, sure, we can do this, let's go build it. And I think that mix of structure and planning with this optimism and positive energy is it's sometimes a challenge, but after all, I think a good win for us as a culture.
A good complementary setup. Let's now talk a little bit about you as a personal individual within that journey. You started building like websites. You're now a CPO, a Chief Product Officer. What were the challenges you faced personally building your team, becoming a leader in this organization? Anything that you find super hard that was waking you up at night, or still?
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of dimensions with this role evolving essentially from being front-end developer and support agent to being what's called a Chief Product Officer.
How many people do you have in your team now?
Now, so I also lead product design as part of the product organization, which makes around 80 people in total.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this team dimension is very interesting, where I've never led people before, neither in terms of actual leadership nor management. So at some point we were building a product management team. I hired a first product manager. With that, at least having some interviewing experience. I remember us actually running the very first interview, Hanno and me, and I realized, like, shit, I have no idea how this actually goes. And I think it was a pretty random conversation. We still ended up hiring that guy, but a lot of learnings made in terms of how to run interviews. But for the first product manager, like, hiring went well, and I realized this notion of becoming a boss, when actually at a Christmas party, he would stop by and introduce his girlfriend and say, hey, this is Roman, my boss. And I back then was like, I'm not really boss, you know. And I was thinking of this, like, of course, I'm a boss, right? But it takes some time to realize this and internalize the consequences of all of this. So there was a moment that made me reflect, after all, like, in terms of the duties of becoming a people manager, which I think is a big transition in the way you operate, especially when, as an entrepreneur, I think you tend to be hands-on, you know, transform ideas into something tangible, where at some point you want to guide people to do the exact same thing with you only giving this guidance, which is very, very different in terms of the way you operate.
And I think you grew up quite rapidly in these 4 years. What were the biggest challenge you faced scaling up this company? Or things that went wrong, if you can share these with us?
Yeah. I was talking about distinct and clearly defined responsibilities before. I think one very tangible mistake we've been making is hiring opportunistically 2 people for a similar role, which we found suitable and felt like, okay, let's make this work with the 2 people and get them on board. And we, at that point, had what's now called customer success split up in 2 departments, which turned out to be way too much entangled to be led by 2 people at the same time. So after all, we need to let one of the 2 go, which is very painful and was 100% our fault and not the person wants. And that was a hard lesson learned in terms of being clear about responsibilities and having them assigned to one individual rather than 2.
And what did you actually hire both of them, just to cover more ground, or?
So it was a combination of skills in
Okay.
terms of, let's say, an entrepreneurial person who's still with us leading customer success by now, actually our largest department, and a person that had experience in the field of customer success for HR software firm. And we felt there's value in having both, but that
Is that also a fear to say no? And to take too much on board?
I think in this case you either need to say no or find a distinct role for the other person.
Yeah, I agree. Prioritizing or making sure that there is no overlap. In your journey, you basically, as I said in the previous, in the introduction, you raised 2 rounds. You were bootstrapped at first, then raised a Series A and the Series B with pretty well-known investors. What has changed since was having, from a bootstrapped company to more of a VC-backed company? How do you see investors, and sorry for the investors in the audience? It can be positive, so I'm sure.
Yeah, I think the disclaimer here is that we have a very good relationship to our investors. So every single board meeting for us tends to be really constructive, so that we go out with even more focus on the things we maybe need to work on and clarify, rather than being told what to do. So I very much appreciate this relationship. But to answer your question, with the height of funding, obviously there's a direction in terms of ambition and potential returns investors, of course, invest into receiving after all. So especially with getting index venture support, we could really feel again us stepping up in terms of the ambition and like not as much with our end goal of becoming the category leader for HR in Europe, but rather the pace with which we want to go there.
And the first run actually provided you with a lot of guidance. If I'm not mistaken, your very early investors were the one that kind of influenced you in putting this framework together, this vision, mission, values, having a right culture. So, and also the HR expertise, I guess, as well, a little bit the entrepreneurial expertise, because they had done this in the past. So do you actually consider early investor business angels as a key support function to any early stage startups?
I think especially for first-time entrepreneurs, business angels can be of much help. I think it's not a must-do if you know what you're doing, and we really didn't know. So for us, it was a big help.
Great. I'm going to move a little bit now to the industry and HR, automation, digitalization, and a little bit also looking at the future of Personio, maybe also what your investors are actually aiming at. So what's next? Where do you see HR going in terms of these digital trends? Where do you see Personio going? If you can tell us a little bit, if we were to see this in a crystal ball.
Yeah. So if you think of what we're doing today, it's essentially killing admin overhead for HR. It sounds like a simple value proposition, and it is to an extent, but it comes with a lot of hard work in terms of automating very complex processes like calculation of vacation entitlements out of the box based on German regulations. But that's what we see as fundamental to making HR even available and have time for what they actually want to do and why they went into HR in the first place, which is taking care of their employees and working on like value creation and strategy. So we believe we need to get these fundamentals really right in terms of process automation, task management, and this repetitive overhead before we can take this next step together with our users of becoming like performing as we see these steps of becoming more efficient and then becoming more performant in terms of actually innovating the processes, having a best-in-class onboarding process that eventually would foster retention of employees. That's at a very different level in terms of putting such a process in place, the same for talent management. Right? And then the third level is becoming really strategic. And there's so much potential for us, which we're only scratching the surface today, which is making sense of all the data we collect for customers across their employees' lifecycle. So we can look into identifying any bottlenecks in their processes, benchmark their time to hire with similar companies in the space, help them attract even So we could correlate the likelihood of people leaving within the first 6 months with the interview process where maybe one person gave a thumbs down within the process. So connecting the dots between different life cycle stages of employees can help truly analyze the organization of the customers and make HR really a strategic partner of the business and understanding the true sentiment of the organization and the levers to pull rather than just being the admin folks for which things mostly can go wrong.
And what's the kind of timeline if I look at these 3 steps? So first step, kind of automating the basics, so the traditional processes that we know of in the analog world. Then second, kind of disrupting or reinventing these processes to kind of be best in class in terms of recruitment, staff planning, career development, etc. And then the kind of strategic level being kind of the AI of employee management to also, I guess, maybe do matchmaking between what a person is best at and a job description or position.
Yeah. So we operate in all 3 dimensions.
Okay.
However, we are still heavily investing into the fundamentals because,
your clients are not that far ahead yet, I guess.
Yes. It's also interesting to observe the industry picking up all these trends, like having a very individual employee experience, which comes with individual training, very specific onboarding, and eventually we can go after making this experience awesome for employees, and someday maybe making it super easy for employees even to have their data, their payslips for different employers, just hopefully using Personio and just bring them along to have one clear history of an employee's data and an employee's development over time, independent of who we work for. Right? So, even beyond all we discussed, thinking of the employee experience, there's so much we can do eventually.
And even like thinking beyond the human, like maybe when the machines are going to replace us. You see Personio being also staff management for, the machines, the robots.
We haven't explored that yet. So probably training for robots would look very different. But what we do see in terms of AI applications is, of course, in recruiting, there's a lot of opportunity and startups solving niche use cases, which we're closely observing. But also when you think of onboarding and also frequently asked questions, like I can imagine having this chatbot that you not only can ask for your vacation entitlement, which is something we'll have soon, but also going beyond that, automating knowledge management with regards to HR. So HR isn't dumped with recurring questions of new joiners, but all of that is automated by some sort of intelligence.
Mm-hmm. What's next for you? Where do you see yourself evolving? Within or without Personio?
I'm curious myself, so looking at the transformation of my job, I feel like I've went through the massive changes of becoming a manager. I think now I'm becoming manager of managers, while I do already work with our director of product design, who is a manager, but I think the next step is managing an even more complex product management organization, which before was just me and the team reporting it to me. So I think that's up next for me, which I don't imagine being as fundamental in terms of change gravity as some of the things we do.
You're managing more complex product, that means complexity in terms of different geographies, or different type of products, different verticals.
It was mostly referring to the organization itself, which is of course harder to align from a product vision and strategy perspective if it's 15 teams rather than 2.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna open floor for questions, and then after that we'll do a little game. That's the surprise. What would you advise an entrepreneur who wants to settle in whatever city to come to Munich? What basically helped you out here in Munich, which makes the ecosystem quite successful or helpful at least?
I think while the ecosystem is smaller than Berlin, for example, it definitely does exist, and it's very dense in terms of especially B2B experience, right? There's a lot of consumer facing high in Berlin, I believe. Where here there's, of course, there's a bias to this, right? But I think here it's more like the hidden champions, like Salonis, for example, where there's not as much buzz, but people really executing well. So I think having this space to execute without being distracted as much, and still having an attractive city to relocate talent for also is not a too bad spot to be.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Thanks a lot, guys. Just to finish this interview, I have a little game for you. A very random list of questions, and you need to basically respond as quickly as possible.
I wasn't briefed about that.
Ready?
I guess so.
Best superhero in your childhood?
I didn't get it, sorry.
Best superhero in your childhood? A superhero. Quick. 3, 2, 1.
I literally watched no superhero series, I think.
No Batman, Superman.
Spider-Man is the only one I watched.
Okay.
That one up.
Next one. Best holiday vacation?
Lago di Como.
Okay, don't tell me you don't take vacation. Best nightclub in Munich?
They're all closed. Bamberger Thiel for now.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Ooh, I didn't expect that one. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Adventure junkie or city sightseeing?
Adventure junkie.
Flight or train?
Train.
Good for the carbon footprint. Ski season or beach bum?
Ski season.
Bootstrapped or VC backed?
Both.
Sweet or sour?
Sweet.
Cool, perfect. Sweet gift. I don't know what I would have if you hadn't so sour. Made something else.
There's these sour fries maybe for the next one in case you want to have a backup. Thank you so much for spending your night with me, and hopefully it was insightful and